World War II was not only fought on battlefields and in the skies, but in the minds of military strategists who believed innovation could change the course of history. By the early 1940s, the oceans had become vast killing grounds where control of supply lines meant survival. Submarines were already feared weapons, silent hunters lurking beneath the waves. Yet in Imperial Japan, a far more radical idea was forming, one that would challenge everything the world believed about underwater warfare. Japan faced a growing problem. Its enemies were industrial giants with near-limitless resources. The United States could replace ships, aircraft, and men faster than Japan ever could. Traditional naval battles were no longer enough. Japanese planners needed a weapon that could strike unexpectedly, from impossible distances, and create psychological shock far beyond physical damage. This desperation gave birth to an unprecedented concept, a cruiser submarine so large, so advanced, that it could travel halfway around the world, attack without warning, and vanish back into the depths. Unlike conventional submarines designed purely for torpedo warfare, this new class would be something entirely different. It would function as a mobile naval base, capable of launching aircraft from beneath the ocean's surface. The idea bordered on science fiction, a submarine aircraft carrier, invisible until the moment it struck. If successful, it could bypass enemy fleets entirely and attack cities, harbors, and strategic infrastructure thought to be safely out of reach. At the heart of this vision was secrecy. The Japanese Navy understood that such a vessel could only exist in the shadows. Its very existence would be a strategic weapon. If the enemy never knew where it was, or even that it existed, fear alone could force defensive overreaction. This was warfare of the mind, not just steel and explosives. The scale of the proposal stunned even Japan's own engineers. This submarine would be LAR. Building the largest cruiser submarine in history was not simply a matter of making something bigger. It required rewriting the rules of underwater engineering at a time when even conventional submarines were plagued with mechanical failures, limited range, and fragile hulls. For Japanese naval engineers, this project was less a ship and more a calculated act of defiance against physics itself. The submarine's sheer size was unprecedented. Stretching longer than a football field and displacing more tonnage submerged than many surface destroyers, it immediately created a problem: pressure. Every additional meter of length increased structural stress, threatening catastrophic collapse at depth. Engineers were forced to redesign the pressure hull using thicker steel and reinforced internal frames, sacrificing speed and agility for strength and endurance. It would never be a fast predator, it was designed to be a silent, unstoppable presence. Range was another obsession. This submarine was expected to cross entire oceans without refueling. To achieve this, engineers installed enormous fuel tanks, giving it the ability to travel around the world 1.5 times without surfacing. No submarine before it had ever possessed such autonomy. But this range came at a cost: increased displacement, slower dives, and greater vulnerability if detected. Perhaps the most radical challenge was aviation. This submarine was designed to carry aircraft, foldable seaplanes stored inside a watertight hangar built directly into the pressure hull. The concept was revolutionary and dangerous. Engineers had to ensure the hangar could withstand crushing depths while remaining large enough to store and deploy aircraft quickly. Hydraulic launch systems were developed, allowing planes to be assembled, fueled, and launched in minutes after surfacing. Every second above water meant exposure to enemy radar and patrols. The propulsion system reflected compromise rather than perfection. Massive D. To understand the true nature of the largest cruiser submarine of World War II, one must go beyond steel hulls and blueprints, and enter the living, breathing world inside it. This was not just a weapon, it was a sealed universe, a floating fortress where dozens of men lived, worked, and waited beneath the ocean for months at a time. Stepping inside the submarine was like entering the body of a mechanical giant. Narrow passageways stretched through the hull, lined with pipes, cables, and valves humming constantly with life. Every inch of space had a purpose. Torpedoes were stacked like silent sentinels, fuel tanks wrapped around living quarters, and machinery dominated the air with heat, vibration, and oil-scented breath. Despite its massive size, comfort was a luxury few could afford. The crew lived in a constant state of controlled tension. Officers and enlisted men shared cramped sleeping areas, often rotating bunks in shifts. Privacy did not exist. Light was artificial, time measured by duty cycles rather than daylight. The ocean outside pressed relentlessly against the hull, a reminder that a single mistake could mean instant death for everyone on board. At the heart of this underwater fortress was its most extraordinary feature, the aircraft hangar. Hidden within the pressure hull, it housed specially designed foldable seaplanes unlike any used elsewhere in the war. Their wings could be collapsed, fuselages secured, and engines protected from saltwater corrosion. For the crew assigned to aviation duties, this space represented both innovation and danger. Any mechanical failure during launch could expose the submarine, turning a strategic mission into a death sentence. Launching an aircraft was a carefully choreographed ritual. The submarine would surface briefly, often at night. Crew members raced against time, assembling the plane, fueling it, and positioning it on the catapult. Engines roared to life in the open sea, shattering the silence. Within minutes. By the time the largest cruiser submarine was finally operational, World War II had entered its most desperate phase for Japan. The tide had turned. Island strongholds were falling, supply lines were collapsing, and Allied forces were closing in from every direction. It was in this atmosphere of urgency that the submarine's true purpose emerged, not as a defensive weapon, but as an instrument of surprise, fear, and psychological shock. The missions planned for this vessel were unlike anything attempted before. Japanese strategists envisioned long-range strikes that would bypass the front lines entirely. The submarine would cross oceans undetected, surface near enemy territory, and launch aircraft toward targets believed to be unreachable. These were not meant to be conventional attacks. They were designed to send a message: nowhere was safe. Among the most audacious plans was a strike on the American mainland or its critical infrastructure. Harbors, coastal cities, and strategic installations were studied in secret. The submarine's aircraft could fly low, avoid radar, and deliver bombs before defenses even understood what was happening. In theory, a single successful strike could trigger panic far beyond the physical damage it caused. Another plan targeted the Panama Canal, a lifeline of Allied logistics. Destroying or disabling it, even temporarily, could have disrupted naval movement between oceans and altered the pace of the war. The idea that a submarine could launch an aerial attack on such a heavily guarded target seemed impossible, yet that impossibility was exactly what made the plan so appealing. But timing was everything, and time was something Japan no longer had. As preparations continued, reality intruded. Allied air superiority made surfacing increasingly dangerous. Radar coverage expanded, patrol aircraft multiplied, and hunter-killer groups roamed the seas. Every mission required perfect conditions: darkness, weather, intelligence accuracy, and Lu. When Japan announced its surrender in August 1945, the world exhaled in relief. Cities lay in ruins, millions were dead, and an era of total war had finally come to an end. Yet beneath the calm surface of victory, a quieter and more secretive struggle began, one fought not with weapons, but with information. Among the most valuable prizes of that moment was the largest cruiser submarine ever built. Allied forces quickly moved to secure advanced Japanese military assets, and this submarine immediately drew attention. Its size alone was shocking. Naval officers who boarded it for the first time struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. A submarine larger than anything in their own fleets. An aircraft hangar built into a pressure hull. Engineering concepts that seemed to belong to a future war, not one that had just ended. American naval intelligence understood the stakes instantly. This vessel was not merely a trophy, it was a blueprint. Every rivet, every compartment, every system held lessons that could shape post-war naval dominance. The submarine was seized intact, its crew detained, its secrets suddenly vulnerable. For a brief time, the submarine became an object of intense study. Engineers and intelligence officers documented its systems, measured its capabilities, and assessed its potential impact had it been deployed earlier. The conclusions were unsettling. This was not a desperate gimmick. It was a credible, dangerous platform that had arrived too late. But the post-war world was already shifting. As the United States and the Soviet Union moved rapidly from uneasy allies to ideological rivals, a new fear emerged. If the Soviet Navy gained access to this submarine, its technology could accelerate their own undersea warfare capabilities. In a world entering the Cold War, secrets were as powerful as weapons. The solution was decisive and irreversible. Despite its historical and technological value, the submarine was condemned. In a classified operation. Long after the echoes of World War II faded, the largest cruiser submarine ever built remained hidden, not just beneath the ocean, but within history itself. Unlike battleships preserved in harbors or aircraft displayed in museums, this vessel left no physical monument behind. Its legacy survives only in declassified documents, scattered photographs, and the uneasy recognition that it represented something far ahead of its time. In the years that followed the war, naval warfare evolved rapidly. Nuclear propulsion, ballistic missile submarines, and global deterrence reshaped military strategy. Yet many of the ideas that defined the Cold War's underwater fleets echoed concepts pioneered by this forgotten giant. Extreme range. Strategic surprise. Multi-role underwater platforms. The belief that the most powerful weapon is the one that is never seen. Modern submarine doctrine quietly inherited its philosophy. Today's submarines are not judged by the battles they fight, but by the wars they prevent. In this sense, the cruiser submarine's greatest impact came not from action, but from implication. It proved that oceans could no longer be trusted as natural barriers. Distance was no longer protection. Historians often ask an uncomfortable question: had this submarine been completed earlier, deployed faster, and used without restraint, could it have changed the war? The answer remains uncertain. But uncertainty itself is revealing. Weapons that arrive too late are often dismissed. Weapons that frighten even in absence are remembered. What makes this submarine truly mysterious is not just its size or technology, but its fate. It was destroyed deliberately, quietly, and thoroughly. No enemy propaganda. No victory parades. Only silence. Such treatment is rarely given to obsolete machines. It is reserved for ideas that remain dangerous. At the bottom of the sea, the submarine rests in darkness, its steel hull slowly surrendering to time. No crew walks its corridors now. No